Welcome back to my shop. My name is Guy, and today I'm going to start working on a Greene and Green inspired wall clock. In this episode, I'm going to start working on the case construction. There's a lot of work to do, so let's get started. So this is a material I'm going to be using on the project. Now this is genuine mahogany. I could not find a local source for this anywhere. So I went online and I found a place in Xenia, Ohio, which is near Dayton. So it's not too far from Indy here, that sold 20 board foot project packs of mahogany. It's called C.R. Mooter's Paw. I'll leave a link in the description down below. Really good prices. They have a lot of imported and of course domestic woods, and you should really check them out. Anyways, I'm going to use probably 3 of these 6-inch boards and maybe 2 of the 8-inch boards on this project. And I'm going to pull these out and I'm going to start looking through and make sure I have the right color match on them. Well, these are the 3 boards I'm going to pull the case pieces out of. Now the corner posts for the sides of the case are 1 inch thick. And I've already milled this lumber once and it's under 1 inch. So I need to take this board, I'm going to cut it in half, I'm going to laminate it together, set that aside, let it dry, and I'll get the corner posts out of this. And I'm going to get the rest of the case pieces out of these areas of the boards right here. But first thing I need to do is mill this again flat and square. So the sides of the case are going to have a top rail and a bottom rail, and there's going to be a panel that goes in between it. Now I'm going to be using this material for the panel and this for the rails. These are all cut out of the same board. This is 3/4 of an inch thick, but I need to resaw this down to 1/4 inch and get 2 sides out of it. Now for the top and bottom rails, I'm going to get all 4 pieces out of this one. So what this jig is for is to make a cloud lift pattern on the top and the bottom of the side pieces. So that's just going to go in there like that. I'm going to lock it down, go over to the router table with a bearing guided bit and remove that material there, and I'll get a nice consistent look to all of them. Now this is one of the top pieces and this one's 2 inches. All I'm going to do is take this 1/2 inch spacer bar, put it in there, lock it in, and do the same thing to this. Well, I put a slot cutting bit in my router table and I have it set at the correct height, and what I need to do is create a groove that goes in the front of this piece right here, and that'll accept the door panel. So these are the side panels, and I've planed those down to 1/4 inch thickness, and this is one of the bottoms, and that's a nice fit on there. It's not real tight, but it's not real loose either. So that's exactly what I'm looking for. Well, I ended up keeping this in the bag about 3 hours or so, and it looks like it's a very nice tight seam down there. I'm just going to let this dry overnight, and then I'll start working on the corner post tomorrow. Well, I've got this board that I laminated together, and I thickness planed it down to 1.25 inches and cleaned up one edge. Now I'm going to rip 4 individual pieces of 1.25 each here on the table saw. Now that I've got these cut to length, I need to mark where some grooves are going to go to hold the side panels. And there's going to be one here, there's going to be one here, there's also going to be a rabbet at the back, and that'll accept the back panel. And since I sized those side panels to fit in the top and bottom rail, I need to cut these grooves over at the router table with the same slot cutting bit. Now that I've got that groove cut for the side panel, I need to cut the rabbet for the back panel. I'm using that same 1/4 inch slot cutting bit since I have it set up. Now that I have the grooves cut for the side panels and the rabbet cut for the back panels, I can start working on the tenons that are going to fit into here on the top and bottom rails. Well, I've got a dado stack set up on my table saw. I've got it set at 1/2 inch, and I've got 3/8 of it exposed and a sacrificial fence. That'll give me the depth this way of 3/8 of an inch. Now I need to cut away a 1/4 inch on the top and bottom of this, and I've got it raised up almost to a 1/4 of an inch right now. And I've got a test piece here. This is actually a cutoff from the top and bottom rails. I just want to make a couple test cuts, slowly creep up on it until it fits in that groove really nice. Well, it took me 2 passes, and I think I got it right. Goes together just with hand pressure. The tenon does not bottom out in the groove, which is nice, so I want nice flat shoulders on here. And I just need to start running the real pieces. Well, I have one of the case sides put together. Everything came together really, really nice. It's nice and square, and all the joints closed up really nice and tight. I need to start figuring out how big that panel is going to go in the middle of this. So I know these grooves are all 3/8 of an inch. So I've just got my double square here, and I'm going to mark 3/8 of an inch here, 3/8 of an inch at the top, and on the sides. So after I've got that done, I can take the steel ruler here, put it on my mark on top, and on the bottom it's roughly 20 7/8. So I'm going to make that 20 3/4. This is 4 5/8. So actually I'm going to take an 1/8 inch off of that because of expansion and contraction. It's February right now and the panel will expand. So I'm going to make that 4 1/2. Now I've got to cut the profile on the side panel to fit the top and bottom rail. So I have a piece here. I've marked the center line on it. I've also marked the center line of this. I just need to line this up carefully so center lines meet, and then just trace around this. All right, well that came together pretty well. I had to use a little bit of persuasion, but not much. This is the outside face, and this is the front of the piece, bottom and top. So I'm just going to start marking all these pieces so I can get this back together the same way it is now. Well, I've got 2 pieces of stock here. They're 3/4 of an inch thick. I haven't come the final length yet, and they're 1 1/2 inches wide. What these pieces are for, they're to connect the left and right sides at the top. Now the front piece is going to need a rabbet, an 1/8 inch by an 1/8 inch right there. Actually, it's an 1/8 inch by a 1/4 inch right there. And that's going to sit in right there and connect it at the top rail. It's also going to act as a door stop when I put the door in, so it sits flush with the front and again gives a place to stop the door. So I've got the dowels and the top cross members, and I've got them held together with clamps right now. Once glue hits them, this will tighten up quite a bit, but I'm mostly looking for shear strength on this, and I'll have plenty of that with these. So now I'm going to work on the middle divider for this. What these dados are for is for a shelf that's going to go in the middle of this. There's a stop dado here, well, kind of a stop dado, it goes into the groove, and there's one that goes all the way to the back. So I thickness planed this divider board down to 1/2 inch to fit this dado I made before, and I just need to cut this to the correct size. Well, there's going to be a sub top on this that's 3/4 inch material, and that's going to be followed up by a top on it which is 3/4 inch material. So when we measured this before, it was 12 and 15/16. We'll just call that 13. I want the sub top to hang over 1 inch on each side, so it's 15 inches long, and right now this is 5 7/8. So I need to go 1 inch above that, so that needs to be 6 7/8. Now that I know the dimensions for the sub top, I want 1.5 inch overhang on each side of the sub top and 1.5 inch in front. Now as far as the base goes, I want 1/8 inch overhang on either side and 1/8 inch in front. Now I got really lucky. That piece I cut off from the top was exactly 13 1/4 inches. Kind of crazy, but it worked out that way. So this is 5 7/8, so I just need to rip this board down to 6 inches. I'm going to be joining the sides of the case to the bottom of the case using dominoes. I'll make a couple marks, and I'm going to use the outside face as my reference face, being face down. It'll make it easier for me to plunge in. Now I'm going to plunge 2 domino slots right here, and then 2 domino slots here with an 1/8 inch offset, and I'll show you how I do that a little bit later. Now, based on the way I'm using the reference faces here, I've got to hold this piece vertical, and I also have to have an 1/8 inch offset to account for that extra 1/8 inch here. So I've just clamped a couple right angle squares here. That'll give me that, and then I've got a piece of 1/8 inch material that's going to act as a shim, and I just put the domino on top of that, line up the lines, and plunge the cut. I'm putting an 1/8 inch round over on the front and the sides. I'm not going to do the back.